Hey, uh, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to you all for joining this side event of the 2025 High-Level Political Forum, focused on strengthening data for inclusive participation in political and public affairs. So this side event is hosted by the Praia Group in partnership with Statistics Norway, UNDP, and UN Women. My name is 𝐏𝐸alexandra Wild, and I am with UNDP's Global Policy Centre for Governance, and I'll be moderating this event today. It is a real pleasure for UNDP to co-host this event. We've been an important partner for the Praia Group since its creation 10 years ago, and a lot has happened in that last decade. In this side event, we're all fully committed to the most important objective of the Praia Group, which is to develop standards and harmonize tools for governance statistics. So this morning or this afternoon, wherever you may be, we have just 1 hour. There's a lot to share, and we have several great speakers from a diversity of countries on our lineup. We also have French and Spanish interpretation, so please use that if you'd prefer. There's a little button at the bottom of the screen, the More button with 3 dots. If you go and click on that and then find either Spanish or French. And I just want to say this is not a random side event happening in a vacuum. We are it's a side event, part of the High-Level Political Forum, and it's the final day today for countries presenting their voluntary national reviews. And a recurring theme for many countries is the importance of inclusive decision-making under target 16.7. So looking at strengthening participatory, representative, and inclusive institutions and ensuring meaningful citizen engagement. And those issues are really at the forefront for many countries here at the High-Level Political Forum. How we measure inclusive political participation, particularly through robust and credible official statistics, is critical to advancing this goal. Another recurring theme that we've been hearing over the last few days is very relevant to the discussion right now is how to close the data gaps through improved statistics and statistical systems. So with that, and without further ado, I'm going to invite Sarah Hendricks, the Director of Policy, Program and Intergovernmental Support Division at UN Women, to open the meeting and share with us some opening remarks. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. It is wonderful to be here today. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, dear colleagues. And it is a real pleasure to join in this welcome to today's event as part of the High-Level Political Forum, hosted by the Praia Group on governance statistics. And as Alexandra has said, in partnership with Statistics Norway, UNDP, and Women. And we'll just remind you to mute your microphones if you could, unless you're speaking. Thank you so much. Our work together very much reminds us that data is never neutral. Data reflects the choices that we make about what we value, who we see, how we lead. And that is why we return again and again to a very core principle. The core principle that gender equality is a question of power. And power can't shift if we first don't make things visible. So the Praia Group's initiative to develop the first ever global guidance on how to use administrative and survey data to measure inclusive political participation, it's not just timely, it's incredibly catalytic. This will equip member states and international organizations to much more concertedly understand where women are in leadership, where they're missing, and what precisely we must do to close that gap. UN Women is very proud to support this work alongside UNDP, leveraging not just our partnership, but our longstanding work on advancing the measurement of women's political participation. This takes us from tracking women in executive positions, women's heads of state, heads of government, but to also importantly, women's participation in local government. And to that end, we have a role as the custodian of SDG Indicator 5.5.1b, which is on women's participation in local governance. So colleagues, this work matters deeply, not just for the achievement of SDG 5 and of course SDG 16, but also for the integrity of democratic institutions everywhere. Our normative frameworks have long asserted that parity in decision-making is a starting point to that equal sharing of power. This was true 30 years ago when member states adopted the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. It also remains true today. And it is also affirmed by the very recently adopted General Recommendation number 40 by the CEDAW Committee. And to meet these targets that we've collectively committed to, governments and national statistical offices and civil society, as well as multilateral partners, really must co-create solutions that are grounded in national realities, as well as aligned with global standards. We hope that by doing this together, we can shape a future where everyone has a seat at the table and where data helps to get them there. I'm really looking forward to today's discussions and to the experiences and innovations that are already paving the way. Thank you so much. And back over to you, Alexandra.
Great, thank you so much, Sarah. That's excellent, really providing important context for this work that is being undertaken. And how important it is for people. So this is not just a technical side event, and so there's really valuable grounding for the discussion. I'm going to invite Vebjørn Aalandslind, the Senior Advisor at Statistics Norway and Chair of the Praia Group Task Team on Participation in Political and Public Affairs, to give us a brief overview of the work led by this important task team and the two very important instruments that have been produced here. So over to you, Vebjørn. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you so much to Sarah for the introduction. I want to start, as you said, Alexandra, the Praia Group has a 10-year anniversary to this year. It was created in 2015, as you can see from this slide, and it has over these 10 years been led by the Statistical Office of Cabo Verde. The idea behind the Praia Group was to create a better kind of system for production of governance statistics. We spent the first period from 2015 to 2020 to work on theories, on concepts, in order to create and develop a measurement framework for governance statistics. Then in the second period from 2021 and onwards, we have been going more into details on some of the dimensions that were identified in the first mandate period. And we in Statistics Norway, we have been sharing this task team on participation in political and public affairs, which is one of the dimensions that was identified by the Praia Group as an area that needed more kind of more elaborate methods and methodologies and instruments in order to produce statistics on the phenomena. Over this period, we have worked together with NSOs all over the world in order to develop instruments that we want to submit to the UN Statistical Commission next year in 2026 and have them discussed and hopefully endorsed there. So that's some of the kind of the timeline of our work. If we start with kind of why we wanted to prioritize and improve statistics on political and civic participation, we have seen some trends in terms of declining voter turnout, disengagement from political life, declining trust in government, combined with more disinformation, threats against civic freedoms and political rights, and all this at the same time as at the statistical community, we as statisticians, we have not really had the international guidance for producing comparable statistics on this domain. So that's the background for the creation of the task team. Who is a member of the task team? It's chaired by us in Statistics Norway, together with UNDP and UN Women, who have both played an instrumental role in this work. We have been working together with NSOs from all regions, from all corners of the world, national statistical offices, but also with research institutions and international and regional organizations, academia, civil society, etc. So it's a huge group, and we built on the input from many parts of the world and many parts of society. Our task has been to develop two tools, two instruments. The first one is a post-election survey module on political and civic participation. What we did, we had a kind of an international survey before we started this, where we tried to explore what is there already out there of statistical instruments on this topic, and we found that it was not so much. There was a little bit scattered here and there, and the statistical offices were not so much involved in this work. Few NSOs had this on their agenda. So we have developed a short questionnaire that can be a standalone survey, or it can also be added on to other surveys, with 10 core questions, easy to include than in larger surveys, and also some complementary questions where you can go even more into details. And what we believe is that the questionnaires can be applicable in different contexts, different voter registration systems, different democratic institutions, systems, etc. So that was the first tool that we have been working on. The second tool or instrument is a guide on how national statistical offices can better produce statistics on electoral participation, electoral turnout, and representation. There are not so many statistical offices that do that today. There are some, and we will give some examples of this. But we see that it's an underused source of official statistics. So we have been working on a guide for national statistical offices to better understand and utilize electoral data, and how the NSOs can add value to the electoral data that's already there. And here we draw on practices across many different electoral systems. But back to the survey questionnaire, that's the first instrument, where we cover kind of different stages in the democratic development. The first one is the participation in electoral processes, where we look at questions related to eligibility to vote, voter registration, voting, participation in election-related activities, and also whether the respondents have experiences of intimidations or violence during elections. So that's the kind of one of the elements of the survey. The second one is participation in political and civic life, where we have questions about political parties, whether you find political parties that represent or partly represent your view. And also we try to measure participation in other political and civic activities. The third kind of building block of the survey is what we have called the enabling environment of participation. Here we look on questions on like interest in political and public affairs, information on political engagement through social media, etc., stereotyping attitudes, political voice, agency, and also perceived levels of political freedoms. So combined, we believe that these utilizing these questions, you will manage to cover many aspects of kind of the democratic process. In this work, we have relied on the input on many different NSOs. We started off with, we spent the 2 first years of our work developing a test survey that has been utilized then by many countries, as you can see on the slide here, where we first had a round of cognitive testing, where we try to see how the questions were perceived in different contexts. And that this has moved on to more field testing and piloting. It's been tested in many different languages, as you can see: English, French, Portuguese, Spanish, also Norwegian, and plus local languages. And the results from this testing, we have taken that back and tried to kind of improve the survey, the questionnaire. And we now plan to have the final product out to get even more input from the global statistical community. So this was the work on the survey. Then we had the second product, that is the guidance on how to better use electoral administrative data in production of statistics on this area. This is the first guidance of this kind. It's built on an understanding of how electoral data is produced by the EMBs, or electoral management bodies, and how the NSOs can use it and add value to the data that comes from the EMBs. We want to align this with existing international statistical standards, and also international guidance on inclusive electoral processes and electoral design. We hope that there will be a practical guidance, that we can have many different examples of countries, how countries do this, and show practices across different contexts. So this is our aim. You can see the structure of the guidance on the right-hand side of this slide, where we start with concepts, move on with national legal frameworks, and where we try to have different types of electoral registers and data sets, data systems that are described.
Vebjørn, just a couple of minutes, if you could just...
I'll round off quickly.
Thank you.
I will.
Good.
So the following slide shows some of the different stages in the electoral process and where we can get data that can be used to produce statistics from voter registers, from candidate data, from voter turnout data, from information about the elected candidates and the representatives. And all these are different sources that the NSOs potentially can use to produce statistics. What we have done we showcase our example in Statistics Norway, where we use different administrative data, mainly the population register, but also other administrative registers, in order to produce election statistics. It's shown here in one of the slides, where we show voter turnout divided by sex, by age, but also by education. Statistic that's very useful from a policy development perspective. So this was just a quick example of different kind of aspects of what we are covering in the guide. So the next steps for the task game is that in September, October this autumn, we will have an international consultation round where we will show the draft methodologies to the statistical community and get their input. Then we hope to present all this at the Statistical Commission in March 2026, and hopefully it will be discussed there and endorsed by the UNSC. So that concludes the presentation, also how we plan to work ahead. Over to you again, Alex. Thank you.
That's excellent, Vebjørn, and thanks so much for catching up on time there. So there was a lot shared. We do hope to have a Q&A session. If you have any questions in terms of what Vebjørn has shared, please do put those in the chat or make a note of them. And if we have a few minutes at the end, then you can ask, and you can always reach out reach out to anyone in the Praia Group at any time. I'm now going to invite colleagues from 4 national statistical offices. Victoria Erenonse, who's the Principal Program Analyst of Nigeria's National Bureau of Statistics, Adrian Franco, who's the Vice President of Mexico's National Institute of Statistics and Geography, INEGI, Alejandro Ramos, who is the Senior Specialist for Colombia's National Administrative Department of Statistics, DANE, and Jose Eduardo Garcia, who is the Praia Group Secretariat Coordinator at 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐥𝐢𝐜 Cabo Verde. They're going to share with us, why their national statistics offices are investing in this really important area and topic. What is the demand? We're also going to hear what's their experience in these different country settings and also what their future plans are. So we're really going to look at how some of these statistical tools really land in different country settings. And then Sarah Lister, the co-director of the Governance, Rule of Law and Peacebuilding Hub at UNDP, will share with us some key takeaways after the Q&A. Just to remind again, because at least one colleague, Adrian Franco, will be making his interventions in Spanish. Do use that interpretation button if you need it. So I'm going to start this roundtable discussion, if you will, by asking Alejandro Ramos first. Why is DANE investing in this thematic area, and why has your NSO made it a priority? What is the demand that you're responding to? Over to you, Alejandro, and you just have two minutes, no more than 2 to 3 minutes, no more than that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Alexandra. Good morning, everyone, and all my colleagues. And thank you for the opportunity to be part of this panel. I am honored to represent Colombia's National Administrative Department of Statistics and to share our experience in producing and using data on political and civic participation. We identified a significant gap in reliable disaggregated data in this area. For many years, statistics on civic engagement, institutional trust, and citizen participation were either limited or fragmented. To address this, we developed the Political Culture Survey, and over the last decade, provides essential insights into how people perceive democracy, engage with political process, and interact with institutions. These insights are essential for designing and evaluating public policies that aim to strengthen democratic culture and civic responsibility. There is a strong demand for this data from multiple sectors. Government agencies use it to shape policies that promote participation, inclusion, and transparency, such as advancing gender parity in political representation, particularly in rural and post-conflict regions. Also, civil society use this data to advocate for reforms and promote civic education. And also, it's important to mention how international organizations rely on it to monitor progress toward SDG 16 and SDG 5. And in academic and the media, this data is widely used to analyze trends in political trust, voter behavior, and civic values, particularly during election cycles. So our investment reflects our commitment to evidence-based policy making and to closing long-standing information gaps in Colombia's democratic development.
Excellent. Thank you, Alejandro. Adrian, I would be very curious to hear too what Mexico's experience is. Over to you, Adrian.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. Very nice to see you. And good morning, everyone. Thanks. First of all, thank you for inviting us with you. Thanks to the UNDP, UN Women, and of course, Praia Group. Let me tell you first that since 15 years ago, we installed in Mexico a very full, complete program on governance, crime and justice statistics. which comprises crime, justice, governance, corruption, quality of government, public services, trust in institutions, and of course, a very specific topic related to civic culture. That's why in 2020, we complete the national survey on civic culture, because this is so important in order to have a look and to have a lot of data related to some variables regarding rule of law and, of course, the quality of democracy. So these two topics, quality of democracy and rule of law, are so important for us, not just because of this national system on governance statistics, but also because our relationship with many institutions is always based on what they require in order to construct evidence-based policy making. So this is so important. The other topic is trust institutions. So political participation and participation in political and public affairs are kind of a proxy data to trust in institutions. Even when we measure a lot of trust in public institutions, we also are measuring this in participant and political and public affairs. So this is why, for example, since 15 years ago, we collect a lot of data from several governments. You know, Mexico is a federation, so we have federal, state level, and local governments, where we collect data from the congresses in order to know how they are built, the half and half men and women, for example, public administrations in local and national level, who is responsible for what, the representative and inclusion of many people from Afro-Mexicans, indigenous people, men and women, young people, and so on. So we are looking always how the governments are built, how the governments are structured, and this is so important. And of course, the issues related to participation in political and public affairs is also very important in this context. We establish always, with many other institutions, a very strong relationship with the National Electoral Institute, which is also autonomous as INEGI, and we work together in order to collect data related to elections. 𝐵𝐵𝐺𝐻𝐿 from Statistics Norway established at the very beginning that it's important also to have data, very disaggregated data, from elections, and as we do with the National Elections Office, but also with ministries of interior, for example, or legislative branch of governments, or the state level Ministry of Interior are one of the most important institutions what we are working in this topic. All of them mainly related to governance and quality of democracy. So all these topics are under a huge umbrella of governance and quality of democracy. So this is very important, and that's why also we work very close. We are part of the Praia Group since the very beginning, 10 years ago, and before it was supported by a statistical commission at the UN. So this is so important, and as 𝐵𝐵𝐺𝐻𝐿 said at the beginning, we also test the new questionnaire that we look to use in order to reinforce both the surveys related to civic culture and also the administrative records. Thank you very much, Alexandra. Back to you.
Great, thank you, Adrian. Very helpful experience there, including around the collaboration with the electoral management body in Mexico. I'm going to hand over now to José Eduardo Garcia, who is the coordinator of the Praia Secretariat. Can you just in a couple of minutes, José, just share with us to what extent this is a priority in Cabo Verde and how you are investing in this particular topic, both with two hats in terms of the Praia Group Secretariat, but also the experience of the host statistical office. Over to you, José.
Thank you, Alexandra. Well, everyone, good afternoon, good morning,
Oui,
according to the
exactement.
place you
Il y
are.
a quelqu'un qui est là?
Um,
𝐿𝐿.
Hello, can colleagues please mute if you're not, please mute. Over to you, Jose.
yes, for Cabo Verde, it's a great honor to be the head and the chair of the Praia Group. But the experience of Cabo Verde on this matter is not only from only this last 10 years. Along the way from like 15 years ago, Cabo Verde started working on these matters before the establishment of Praia Group. So for Cabo Verde, it's a strong national commitment of the theme of a thematic area of good governance. Has maybe you don't know, but in Cabo Verde, for example, the President of the Republic is the national governance champion. So this is a national priority, and because it's a national priority is why we, during the session where they want to establish this working group, this city group, we decide to candidate ourselves and to be the head of this group, the Praia Group. So 𝐼𝐴𝐵 has the chair of this group, invest in statistics and political and civic participation for a long time ago, because we know that it's strategic and it's essential to consolidate democracy and build inclusive, effective, and accountable institutions. So 𝐼𝐴𝐵 is fully committed to the methodological innovation, not only through the development of surveys instruments or integration of administrative electoral data, but also by investing in capacity building to ensure a long-term sustainability of the statistical domain. This commitment of 𝐼𝐴𝐵 is also to respond to a clear and growing demand for robust data on political and civic participation in Cabo Verde. Here we had already 3 experiences that we did in Cabo Verde. The first one before the Praia Group on 2013, after we did in 2016, and again we did in 2023. Policymakers, public institutions, academia, civil society, international partners, they rely on this data we produce to design and implement and evaluate also policies that promote inclusive participation and also to reinforce the democratic values. Only, for example, we can say we have some good examples of important institutions in Cabo Verde that have interest in this area. For example, the National Election Commissions that show interest in the possibilities that this thematic area we can work together, and we can inform them about how this process of the elections can be made, and also they can use the results to inform better policy and promote broader and more inclusive participation. Thank you very much, Alexander.
Great. Thank you, Jose. I'm going to turn now to Victoria Irononse from Nigeria's Bureau of Statistics. Victoria, like Adriana, is also a steering committee member of the Praia City Group. And it would just be great to hear from you, Victoria, how are statistics on political and civic participation being used in your country? And be great to hear a couple of examples of that in terms of different users, policymakers, senior officials, civil society, and so on. Over to you, Victoria.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Good morning, afternoon, everyone. Just like Alex has mentioned, the Nigerian National Bureau of Statistics is a steering committee member of the Praia Group. And this is because we see that there is a growing need for good governance in Nigeria. And as the NSO responsible for producing official statistics, it's crucial that we have data, especially on this aspect, to inform decision making. More so, the National Development Plan for Nigeria 2021 to 2025 recognizes citizens' participation and engagement as a key ingredient to ensure vibrant democracy. Yes, in Nigeria, we have data statistics on political and civic engagement have been used by the EMBs to ensure that electoral activities are enhanced, maybe future elections. Example, even CSOs like the Yaga Africa, they are in charge of promoting democratic and governance. So statistics like this have been used, but for us, National Bureau of Statistics, we rely majorly on administrative statistics, which we get from the EMB, and we get like candidates profile, elected candidates, voter registration, which we publish on our annual statistical yearbook. So it was an opportunity for us to get data on a more robust level to complement what is already existing. And we could see we could understand from the field tests that we conducted at household level why citizens are participating, the challenges they face, why they are not interested in even taking part in any of these activities, and for those of them that were engaged, the sources they used in engaging in all this. Some of the results from the field test actually reveal that when people try to vote, problems encountered when trying to vote or assessing the polling units. So there are still long queues, and these are discouraging factors why some of them have even refused to register to vote in the first place. And nearly 1 in every 5 Nigerians has refused to register because they believe that their vote won't count and they don't have interest. So what we realize is that despite that we have administrative data, such quantitative data like we got from the field test do not actually reveal some of these findings that we got when we conducted the field test. So we are saying that it will be good to have such data so that it can improve good governance, and it will help in interventions like the electoral reforms that they actually come up with, the government to enhance future elections. I think this will provide more information on how they can go about it. So it's something that can complement what is already on ground, and also it's a sustainable process. It's something that can be collected on a sustainable basis. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Victoria. Very clear, very, very helpful. I'm going to turn to you now, Adrian. It would be great to hear a little bit more, maybe around the collaboration between 𝐒𝐻 and the electoral management body, or a little bit more around how the political survey is being used. So just a couple of minutes to hear some practical examples of use of the data.
Thank you, Alexandra. Not yet. Well, let me first tell you that the electoral management body, our National Elections Institute, is also autonomous as 𝐒𝐻. And we have a very strong collaboration in several topics. One, it has been all the time that we collect data on civic culture and give to them in order to make several studies and, for example, to calibrate their processes for elections. So also we work a lot with the state level electoral institutes or electoral bodies because they also demand a lot of data, not just natural data from statistical office like social demographic, for example, for planning elections, or the disaggregation of data also in order to define the circuits in elections in Mexico, but the federal and state level. So this has been very important. But above that, for example, Ministry of Interior, both federal and also state level, are also demanding a lot of this data. They require data in order to improve the way in which citizens engage into the participation of several or different activities that are implemented by governments, both federal or local level. And also, there has been in the last 7 years a very important process of involving people in public decision making, not just from elections, but also in the field. For example, in public policies that affect certain areas or regions of the country. So they are very involving. So governments are always demanding this kind of information that we produce with data, both from surveys and also administrative records, in order to engage people and in order to know how to ease this to make this relationship between governments and institutions, and governments and people. So administrative records and surveys are very important because they complement together one each other. So it's so important to have both in order to give to the institutions that are responsible for public policy making to have a bigger picture of what they can do. For example, our relationship with the elections body, not just for the studies or for the decisions that they have to make in order to manage the electoral process, but also, for example, to involve with the ministries of interior, to involve much more civic participation. We have a lot of national NGOs, for example, non-governmental organizations, or there are new kinds of participation. For example, youth people is participating a lot in electronic ways with several governments. So the governments impulse or provoke this kind of participation, and they want to make it easier, but also they want to know how the people is perceiving their performance. So that's why also we are interested in measuring, besides these these topics related to political participation or public affairs, also we are interested in to measure trust in public institutions. And that's why we work also a lot with the OECD since more than 10 years ago. So, but for us also, and I will finish with this, it is very important also the public affairs, because our main topic is governance in governance statistics in this national system. So for us, it's very important to know how the governments are structured. So how many people are there? How many public servants do we have? Who of them are men, women, the age, the education, the level of education, and so on. The Afro-Mexican, for example, or indigenous people. Even more, we are also collecting data from local communities because they have a specific regulation. They are under local customs and then decide their government. So we also collect data from that in order to put all them together in an inclusive way. So this is important. And the future, of course, the future is always for our national statistical offices to go in deep and to disaggregate more this data and to collect all other data. So back to you, Alexandra, and thank you very much.
That's extremely helpful, Adrian. Really, really important insights there. I'm just going to turn now to Alejandro. If you can complement or add particular perspective or experience coming from Colombia, that would be very helpful. Over to you. And again, just a couple of minutes, 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra. Just with the political culture survey has become key input for public policy and democratic initiatives. Just to mention a few examples, the Ministry for the Interior used the data to support the creation of the National Joint Commission for Rural Communities, a national mechanism for political dialogue. As you see on the screen, there's a few data of participation about in groups, organizations of police in Colombia, disaggregated by gender and, for this example, peasant population. And also, National Planning Department integrates indicators of the survey into the National Development Plan and our government evaluation system to track progress on participation and institutional trust goals. Also, at the local level, the Mayor Office of Bogota used the data to identify areas with low civic engagement and trust, guiding the implementation of participatory budgeting and civic education programs. Another example from civil society organizations like the NGO Electoral Observation Mission used the survey to monitor gaps in political participation, especially among women and rural population, and to advocate to electoral reforms. And as you can see, this data holds broad potential not only for policymakers, but also for civil society. In the future plans, we hope to three main priorities. The first one, expanding thematic coverage, including questions on youth engagement, digital participation, and political inclusion. Improving data accessibility by developing visual tools and user-friendly platforms that make easier to both policymakers and the general public to explore and to use the data. And also strengthening partnerships with government agencies, electoral bodies, and civil society to ensure that data production is aligned with policy needs. So thank you, Alexander.
That's excellent, Alejandro, also for sharing some of the future plans, particularly around activities related to dissemination and making that easier to access. I'm just going to ask very quickly, just 1 minute, to hear from you, Victoria, around Nigeria's future plans in this space in terms of civic and political participation. Just a minute. It would be good to hear what's next for you.
Yes, so for the field test, actually, we adopted the Praia Group cost-effective methodological approach, where we integrated the core questions into another household survey. And we were able to carry this out nationwide. We noticed that we integrated it just few weeks to the commencement of the crime perception survey. And it turned out really well, showing that this is sustainable. For us in Nigeria, we are looking at carrying this out after general elections. It will give us an opportunity to be able to reach out to the nation, because this is a time where elections are conducted nationwide in the country, rather than maybe states and governors' elections. So this is what we are looking at for National Bureau of Statistics. For subsequent elections, we would like to integrate the model into an existing household survey and then check which will help us to understand the changes, what has changed over the years. So that's the future plan for National Bureau of Statistics in Nigeria.
Excellent, very helpful. And maybe just to hear from you lastly, Jose Eduardo, there's an election next year in Cabo Verde. What are the future plans in terms of statistics on this topic for 𝐒𝐴-CV?
Well, looking ahead, we are excited because next year will be a year with a couple of elections here in Cabo Verde. And our expectation is maybe we can have the opportunity after this electoral cycle to do the survey when it is endorsed next year in 2026, to pilot it nationally in 2027, okay? At the Praia Group level, well, the next steps, as Fabian also flourished in the beginning, it will be the global consultation that we will launch in early September with the two instruments that we are developing, the survey and the guidance on administrative data. And of course, we want to invite everybody to give for the feedback and to support this process when it starts. Okay, thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you, Jose. Okay, we have a minute or two. This was excellent sharing of experiences. Extremely interesting, extremely insightful, and very inspiring. So I hope colleagues joining have felt very enriched by this. We have just a couple of minutes for a question or two. There's a question. There's a couple of questions in the chat there. There's one related to disability. There's others related to guidelines. I think the Secretariat colleagues and others in the task team can also start responding to those. There's reference to the handbook. Is there anyone that wants to come in? Any participants there that have a quick question? You can raise your hand or write in the chat box.
Alex, I see a question from Brazil. Maybe Leonardo could
I don't see the question. Can you just, where is that?
Yeah.
Who's that from?
So it's for
Oh, there it is from good. Okay, let's just take that really quickly. So there's a question here from Brazil for Adrian and Alejandro. Mexico and Colombia are both part of the OECD, and was wondering if better life with civic engagement dimension or other international demands are a catalyst to start and keep producing participation statistics. So really a question around the motivation or the catalyst in terms of the OECD membership. Adrian, just 1 minute if you could, and then maybe also over to you, Alejandro, very briefly. What's your take on that, Adrian?
Well, first of all, thank you for the question. Of course, OECD has several programs related to better life. The other one is this is related to happiness and way of life, and the other is trust in institutions that is under a bigger umbrella also that is called quality of democracy. And of course, all of them are a catalyst for several data that countries are producing. As I mentioned in some minutes ago, measuring trust in public institutions, this related to inclusive participation, inclusion in governments, and participation in political and public affairs are part of those process of collecting and producing data under the Better Life initiative in OECD, for example. If you see the questionnaires in there where they collect data through surveys or some questionnaires that they send to the countries, you will find some similarities related to these topics under those kind of initiatives in OECD. Thank you.
Excellent, Alejandro. Anything quick to add?
I agree with Adrian, but also I'd like to highlight our efforts to enhance international comparability as a key opportunity. And through the Praia Group on Governance Statistics, we are contributing to development of standardized variables and key indicators. And we hope these efforts enable other national statistical offices to begin producing data on these themes with access to the methodological guidance, fostering a more harmonized and collaborative global approach to measuring governance dimensions.
Excellent, super critical point. The global comparability and the harmonization, which is really at the heart of the work of the Praia Group. There's a comment there about the need for disaggregated data on disability, which I think everyone agrees with. And we should probably put a spotlight on that in a dedicated webinar. It's certainly an issue that the Praia Group is very much seized with. And there's some questions there around guidelines. So, and I see that Liliana, we have a lot of further information and a lot of guidance on the Praia Group website. And there's emails there, so do reach out, and we're happy to share the instruments with you. And of course, there's a global consultation. So with that, we just have a few minutes now. I'm going to hand over to Sarah Lister, who is the co-director of the Governance, Rule of Law and Peacebuilding Hub at UNDP, close the meeting, leave us with some important key takeaways to take with us. And with that, over to you, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. I will do my best. It's been a very rich discussion. But we know that governance has historically been one of the least measured areas in national statistics, largely due to its complexity and political sensitivity. But we also know that without data, as Sarah Hendricks started the meeting by saying, it's difficult to drive meaningful change. And that is why UNDP is strongly committed to helping close this gap by supporting global initiatives such as the Praia Group on governance statistics, and which is helping to address some of the challenges of international comparability and harmonization, which we've just been talking about. So I would like to really thank the colleagues from the national statistical offices of Norway, Nigeria, Mexico, Cabo Verde and Colombia for sharing the stories and the insights and their plans for the future that really brings these statistics and these processes to life. I think you've shown us all that the real world impact of governance data in shaping more inclusive and accountable societies. So we've heard clearly why it's so important to measure political and civic participation and to have disaggregated data. As we've heard, this kind of data helps us understand why certain groups such as women, youth, other marginalized communities may be underrepresented or disengaged. And this is crucial knowledge for public policy. Indeed, evidence shows that when people are actively involved in shaping the policies and decisions that affect their lives, they have higher levels of trust in government. And as we've also heard, it's fundamental to democratic governance and human rights. We've also seen the important complementarity between administrative electoral data and survey data, and the critical role that national statistical offices can play in enhancing the value of electoral data, for example, by enabling more detailed disaggregation of electoral results. So the Praia Group's groundbreaking work, which we've heard about this morning, this afternoon, today, in this area is even more significant now that we have an official international statistical classification that recognizes governance as a domain of official statistics, with participation in political and public affairs as a subdomain. So as we draw this meeting to a close, we do look forward to your engagement in the upcoming global consultation on these instruments, which will be a key step towards their finalization and global use. I've been very heartened to see so many colleagues online for the full length of this discussion, and with a lively discussion in the chat. So please do get in touch with us at UNDP or with the colleagues in the Praia Group Secretariat if there's anything you would like to know more about or how to engage further. So thank you once again for your active participation and continued commitment to advancing governance statistics. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Take good care. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to everyone for joining.
Thank you all.
See you soon.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.